Because that's the question we have to ask. Is it a process problem or is it a people problem? Either one of those, you still need to fix, whichever one it is, right? And so most of the time, along what you were saying, Dave, is that most people don't ask themselves, am I the problem of my business? Because they just assume it's everyone else. And so I guess I would phrase it like this. So if you are someone who thinks that they are not the problem in the business and the problem is everything else, I would say, welcome back to the Restaurant Growth Accelerator podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Scott, multi-unit location owner for almost 20 years, and I've helped over 1,000 restaurant owners increase their sales, put more money in their bank account, and help them spend more time with their family. And now we want to help you do the same. With me today, Dave, what is going on?
How's it going, Andrew?
It's going
Happy
good. You look like you match. It's like we have the same shirt
trying to
or
be
something.
your mini-me. Trying to be like Andrew when I grew up.
Fair enough. Nobody wants that. But having said that, what we're going to be talking about today is a question that a lot of owners ponder, and it's am I the problem in my business? Right? Most of us have probably thought this, usually after a few beers and being frustrated. But
my guess is that not enough business owners ask themselves that question.
Well, you know what? Actually, that's not a bad point. So let's dive into this a little bit. My personal belief is that as an owner, you are always the problem in your business. And I will tell you why. It is because either by your actions or inactions, the results of your business come from, is basically the way that I look at it. From your action or inactions is where your results come from. So let's use an example here. Say a restaurant owner is frustrated because their team don't do the things that they need to. They're frustrated because maybe they don't show up, they don't do the job well enough, they're unreliable, like all the sorts of things that people normally say, oh, nobody wants to work anymore. So like all that kind of stuff that would make you say that, right? And so the question I ask to most owners is I'm like, okay, well, if they're not good employees, I mean, how come they're working for you? Right? That is a decision to keep them working for you, right? Now, most people would then say to that, well, I don't know how to hire better people. And then that is the problem to solve in your business. But again, you are the one that has to then go and take the steps to improve how you can find better people and make that better. Oh, well, what if they say, well, no one in my area wants to work? And I would say to them, well, it sounds like no one in your area wants to work for you because people are clearly working somewhere, right? And there are probably other restaurants who do have some good employees, maybe not everyone, but they probably have some good employees, but they're working there and not for you. So what can you do then to make your business better so that they would want to work for you? At the end of the day, it is your action or inaction that will make this happen. Let's look at another example. Say if you are not making enough money in your restaurant, say the profitability isn't there. At the end of the day, it could be because maybe the sales aren't high enough, maybe your costs are too high. Could be a variety of different reasons, but you know what? Maybe you need to increase your prices. Maybe you need to manage your finances better, but the way you're doing it is by working more and more hours to try and, save labor yourself. At the end of the day, it is by the choices you made of the actions to take or not take that give you the results. And so ultimately, business flows like this. We have to do different things to get different results. So if the inputs that you're putting in are getting you outputs that you don't want, then you need to change your inputs. You need to do things differently. You need to change a system. Maybe you need to do more of it, less of it, who knows what. But the inputs you're putting in are getting outputs you don't want, and it is up to you to change that equation. And the longer you avoid changing that equation, the longer you will stay stuck where you are. So I say yes, each and every individual business owner is the problem in their business. And I say that because I am the problem in my business as well. A business will only grow up to the level of either one of your beliefs or your skill sets. If you go up to the top of the skill set and you're like, I don't know how to manage my finances, your business will never progress past that until you learn the skill of managing your finances at the level that it needs to be. You're not going to progress past that. If you get up to the level of, you don't know how to market properly, until you learn that skill, or hire the people in your business to then do that, which again is a hiring skill set to be able to do that. Until you do one of those two things, your business isn't going to progress past that. That is the reality that we face. So that's my synopsis. So Dave, I'd love to hear your take on it, and let's dive in.
I mean, we can just throw out a couple of very obvious old adages, which is the buck stops here, and or everything rises and falls on leadership. And so that's basically what you were describing. And so it is exactly that. Everything starts at the top and rolls downhill. And so whatever it is, and I think so. To my point earlier, I don't think enough people ask themselves that question. Like, to me, it is a high level thought process. You have to be self-aware. You have to understand yourself, and you have to be open enough to be able to look at all the problems that are going on in your business and saying, okay, yes, that just happened. How am I responsible for that? Or how does that fall on me? Let's look at it from the top down and see where the hole is, where the miss is, to get that fixed. And so that's really all we're talking about here, is taking responsibility for ourselves and everything that's going on around us as the leader, as the person at the top of the chain in this scenario.
Well, let's look at it like this, because all the problems in your business are either system processes or people problems. So like system problems or people problems. So let's look at it this way. Let's say, for example, an employee makes a mistake and they put the wrong ingredients on a burger that goes out, right? And you go back, and because the table returns it and they didn't like it, blah, 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 blah. And then you're like, how the hell could you make this mistake? Like, how do you not know what comes on, the house burger, whatever? And then, so the question I would ask to them is, I'm like, okay, so where is it written down what exactly goes on that burger? Right? That's the first place I would go. And then if you can point to me and say, hey, the recipe is right here, it's exactly where it is in plain sight, and they can execute it like that, great. I would ask that question. And then the next thing I would say, okay, so show me the documented training process that showed this employee how to do all of those things and where to find those documents and how he was trained. Is it signed off by the employee? And I would look at those two things. And then if both of those things in place, then I would be like, yeah, dude messed up, but until we actually look at the process around it, because that's the question we have to ask. Is it a process problem or is it a people problem? Either one of those, you still need to fix, whichever one it is, right? And so most of the time, along what you were saying, Dave, is that most people don't ask themselves, am I the problem in my business? Because they just assume it's everyone else, right? Yep. People don't want to work anymore. Employees are shit. The economy is terrible. It's nothing. And so here's what I would say to that. The economy is terrible. Okay, what have you done to adapt to it? Right? Because sure, it's a shit show, but does that give you permission to then just curl up in a ball and close your business and die? Or can you actually do something about it? Because we have clients that right now are having their best sales and best profits ever, even despite the economy. So what are they doing that you are not? And that is the question that we need to ask. So it comes back to, is it a system problem or a people problem? And we need to be looking at ourselves and saying, how did I contribute to this, right? Because it's so easy to blame everything else, but that doesn't actually solve the problem. Because how does blaming the economy fix the profitability of your restaurant?
Yeah, exactly. It's a problem, but the question is, how are we responding to that, and how are we adapting to that, and what are we doing about it? There's definitely ways to find patterns in that too. Like, I was just thinking, when we see problems that are repeating over and over, so a pattern where we continue to have this problem, regardless of who's on the team. So you can have a full turnover of staff. You can be a year down the road and look back and say, okay, I had this problem a year ago, but I only have 10% of the current team that I had a year ago. So that means you have a whole new team and you still have the same problem. So it's probably not a people problem. It's a process or a me problem.
Yep.
That I haven't identified and fixed.
Yep, absolutely. And so I guess the way for me is, like, one thing that I had to learn along the way is that I needed to change what I was doing, because you know what? In my very first restaurant, we were doing like $500 a day. Our rent was super high. Like, I was behind on all my payments. My bank account was in overdraft. I lived in overdraft for years. And, Like I was lucky if I didn't bounce a check from the negative overdraft that I had. That was what life was like for years. I don't recommend it. 0 out of 10 stars on that. Do not recommend. But that's where I was. And I could have sat there and said, yeah, it's everybody else's fault. Yeah, it's the economy. There was like a transportation, like a bus strike in our city. And I'm like, oh, it's the bus strike. It's this, it's that. But none of those things would have put me closer to my goal. And I think for years, I said all those things. Oh, it's this. Oh, it's that. But it's when I started to turn my eyes to, well, what can I do differently, is when things started to change, right? What am I doing that needs to change that will then change the outcome of the business? So for example, if you can't hire the right people, maybe you need to have a better job at. Maybe you need to have a better interviewing process. Maybe you need to have a better reference check process. Maybe, who knows what. Or if it's a manager that hires, you're like, well, my manager can't hire. I'm like, well, who trained them?
Who trained
how
them
to hire?
To hire.
Right? Still comes back to you. So you need to look at, okay, like what do I need to do and how do I solve this particular problem? And I think that's the thing that we don't do nearly enough.
All right. So here's what I think. Once we're in that pattern and we actually start to reflect and we get open and we start asking ourselves as leaders those questions of what am I responsible for and what is it that I need to change and do differently, things absolutely can change real quick. And some of the ways that we can do that is actually not just thinking ourselves, but actually diving in to the team. So for example, talking to your team about what's going on. So for example, one of the things that we actually utilize is surveys. So doing anonymous surveys through the team and getting their feedback and perspective on what they see are holes in the business or holes in their performance, or how they feel that we're doing as a business, how they feel our leadership team is doing. And once we get just little tips and ideas from our team, it completely expands our perspective on the whole thing, because we may be thinking that our team's thinking one thing, but once we do this little anonymous survey, little things will identify themselves as holes in our business. And then we can start to act on that and improve the things that we weren't even thinking about. So getting more perspectives, I think, can be really, really powerful and enlightening as well.
Yeah, no, I love that. We used to even do like 360-degree surveys where you would, like say if we were assessing an individual's performance, we would assess that from the perspective of the people that manage them and then the people that they are managed by them. And so we'd kind of get a 360-degree view. We used to do this for our managers. And, the impact of that was always really good, because you always found some things in there that needed to be changed. And I even did surveys about my performance as an owner. I used to have that as well.
Scary.
Yeah, to hear that type of feedback. But that's also the feedback that will prompt you to change and will allow you to go to the next level. That's part of it, because you need to be able to have that feedback. And most of us, unfortunately, we live in like echo chambers. Like, most of our employees or most people in our world aren't going to tell us what they really think. Right?
Yep.
Unless you really open yourself up to that, they're not going to give you the stuff that you really need to know and can work on. And so I guess I would phrase it like this. So if you are someone who thinks that they are not the problem in the business and the problem is everything else, I would say, let's try and be a little bit more open-minded and let's look at it from a different perspective. And just start asking the question of what can I do differently in this scenario, right? So if an issue happens, your sales are down. Okay, well, what can I do differently? And I think that that's a very powerful question, because you have to admit that the things that happened, the inputs, got us to where we are at today. So what do we need to change to create a different outcome? So what can I do differently to create a different outcome is a great question. Write that one down, put it on your dash before you drive into work, put it in a laminated sheet of paper in your shower and read it every morning. There's a funny story to that. I used to do like affirmations and stuff, and I literally put that in the shower so I'd read it every morning. But it was just how I would start for me to think a little bit differently, right? Because I need to retrain how I thought about everything, because I always just thought everyone else's fault, that I was perfect. And if I was perfect, my business would have been better, right? Yeah. Even today, if I was better, my business would be better. And I look back And I even look at the ownership company and how we could be better. And I'm like, you know what? We identified a problem a year ago, and this is the way we tried to solve it. But we tried to solve it in the wrong way, and that's why we still encounter that problem today. It was my decision on how I tried to solve it. I wish I had known what I know now, but that's not what happened. So you can't fault yourself for what happened in the past, but you have to understand that everything rises and falls on your decisions, right? It is up to you to make the changes. No one else is going to do it for you. And if you avoid change, actually, here's another thing to write down, is inaction is an action. So if 100%. You do nothing, that is still an action, right? Sometimes we think, oh, hey, our sales are trending down. If, maybe they'll go back up soon. If you do nothing, well, guess what? You don't have control of that situation. And they may go up or down or whatever, but you'll have no control over it. And so that is still a choice you are making to do nothing. And you have to ask yourself are you okay with the consequences of that?
Yeah, which in that case, the consequences are that's going to be the pattern year after year after year. Is you're
until
just
you
going to see the blips, but you're going to be stale on your growth, or you're going to go backwards instead of trending up.
Yeah, no, totally.
And that's not a cool consequence.
No, not at all. So let's look at a few different areas of the business and some different ways that, we can kind of apply this. The hiring one we've talked about a lot. And probably the situation that I like to mention the most is, you ever had someone that quits and you're like, good, they weren't a good fit anyway. And then anytime someone ever says that to me, I go, oh, well, why did you hire them in the first place? And they're like, well, they weren't bad
why
then.
Did you keep them until they had to quit?
That's the second one, right? So, okay, but if you knew they were bad, then how come they were still working for you? And how come they're the ones that had to quit and you kept them on too long, right? And then you could say, well, like, I didn't hire them, my manager did. And I would say, okay, well, how come your manager doesn't know how to hire? How were they trained, right? It all goes back to you at the end. So that's a hiring example. Let's talk about a few others where it may manifest itself on the day-to-day. Restaurant owners, before you open more locations, stop. I've seen way too many owners go from 1 to 2 to 3 to bankruptcy. I know because I was once there myself. The difference in owning multiple locations is how you have to change, and if you don't make the shift, it'll take years to recover. I took my 3 biggest lessons and put them in a free ebook called the Multi-Unit Playbook, so you don't have to go through the same struggles that I did. Go to the link in the description below and get your free copy today.
Yeah, I mean, we touched on training, but that is a really obvious, simple one to talk about. If we see a month down the road or 2 months down the road, you've got a newer team member who is not performing, the first place to go is, okay, well, why aren't they performing? Is it the training? Is it that they're not a fit? Is it that they suck? Is it that they're complete losers? Or do we back up and say, okay, let's take a look at the training system. Where are there areas that they're having the biggest problems in? Focus on that, go back, look at the training they were provided in that specific area and say, okay, who was the trainer? Do we have a training system? Did we follow the training guide? Did we document how they went through their training? Did they score high on that? Or did they score low and we moved on anyway, instead of staying in that pocket and continuing that training in that area? So there's so many potential holes there. That's a really obvious one to look at.
Dave, you ever cleaned a mirror before?
Yes, Andrew, I have.
So here's a story that I love to tell it, because this one time I went into one of my restaurants and I had my little clipboard and I was checking over, okay, is everything clean? Was everything completed the way it should have been last night at the close? Like, is our service good? Like, I was kind of looking through, just doing a check. I had 2 restaurants at the time, and I was just going in, making sure everything was there. And I went into the bathroom and I saw this mirror that was streaky, and it was like someone had tried to clean it, but they just used the wrong product. Maybe they used a degreaser or a multi-surface cleaner instead of Windex and a paper towel. Or I've also seen it where they use a white bar towel instead of paper towel, and it's all white stuff just hanging all over the mirror. And I'm just man. So anyway, I went in there and I'm like, who the hell cleaned this mirror? And so I walk over to our duties list, and it was a girl named Sarah that had done it. That's actually not her name at all, but I'm just going to use that. Exactly. That's Sarah. Anyway, so went over and I'm like, man, how does she not know how to clean this? So I literally brought all the staff into the bathroom. I'm like, guys, we got to do this better because people judge our kitchen cleanliness based on our bathroom cleanliness. So this needs to be way better, because then they're going to think that we're not a clean restaurant at all. This is how we treat our bathrooms, which is in customer view. So I did that. And of course I texted Sarah and I'm like, you got to use Windex and paper towel. And so the thing is, I went to my next location and guess what I found?
Another streaky mirror.
The same damn thing. And so I'm like, how the hell is this happening? Like, does nobody have common sense anymore? Like, did their mothers not teach them how to clean a mirror? Like, what is wrong with the world today? And I was just like livid over this, like, maybe I should just burn down my businesses because no one knows how to clean a mirror. That's a little bit of an excessive way to look at it. But point is, I looked at it, I'm like, how the hell do people not know how to clean a mirror? This is like basic shit. This is common sense. Well, what I had to realize is that common sense isn't common to someone who's never done it before, because there is no common anymore, right? People are coming in from different countries. People might have different backgrounds when they work for me. They might have worked at different places before where they did things differently. They have different upbringings and different childhoods, and people might have been taught certain things and not others. There is no common anymore. So what we have to understand is that how we make things common is by training it. And so here's what we did. So from an operations checklist perspective, here's what we did. We changed it from saying clean bathroom mirror, because that's what it said before, which to me was obvious as shit, right? I'm like, how does somebody screw that up? You just clean the mirror. Like, come on, you can do that. But here's how we changed it. We said clean bathroom mirror with Windex and paper towel, right? It's really like... which sounds like such a simple thing, but adding those two things,
and that's the beauty of it.
Well, it's so simple because then there's two decisions they have to make when someone says clean bathroom mirror. Well, actually, there's like a number of decisions they have to make, but it's like, what product do I use? Right. So do we use like there's an assortment of like 4 or 5 different cleaners. Which one do I use for this job? And then what do I use to do the cleaning? So there's two things they had to make a decision on. And that's where they were getting it wrong. They were aware enough that they needed to spray something and wipe it. But it's the other piece of like, what did they use to do that? So by changing it, that allowed them to not have that issue anymore because it was so clear. And then if someone ever doesn't do it, we can then go, hey, was there something confusing about the way this was written? And they say, well, no. And then you're like, okay, great. So that's the way it needs to be done. No ifs, ands, or buts. That's the standard. And then we can hold them accountable for that, because then it's no longer a system problem. It's then a people problem.
The beauty of all that is that, like you said, this is such a simple, ridiculous, almost silly example. But if we can go into that much detail about that simple example, imagine how much more impactful it is when we're talking about how much higher level, what we would consider higher level problems, right? So if that can be screwed up on how to clean a mirror, think about bigger problems where we have the exact same situation, where we're not training, we're not giving the proper instruction, we're not creating the environment for success for our team members on anything. If we can't do it with a bathroom mirror, we're obviously probably not doing it on a whole bunch of other things that are way bigger and way more important.
Yep. And let's take it back to this. I could have easily just sat there and been like, you know what? Everybody's stupid. Can't find good help. Like, bunch of idiots. Like, I could have said there because, I mean, it would kind of be correct a little bit. Like, talk about a freaking bathroom
in
mirror
that frame
here.
of mind, yes, but I'm going to push back and say, no, it's not correct, because the whole common sense conversation you had is 100% the point.
Well,
especially when we're talking with, teenagers or whatever, we don't know what their parents taught them. We don't know if they've ever been taught that. And so, like I said, common sense isn't common if they've never done it before, because it's our job now to give them more training in life by teaching them how to do the things that we need them to know how to do, because it's our business and we got to take care of it.
Well, and should that be the case or shouldn't it be? Neither of those things matter, because it is what it is, right? Because when I talk about like the perfect, it's the result, right? And so at the end of the day, yes, you probably shouldn't have to do all that stuff, right? They should, in an ideal world, just know it all and do it all, and you never have to do anything and train them or hold them accountable. But that's not the reality we live in. And the other part of it too is what determines success or failure is the ultimate result. So again, it's not how you feel about whether you should train people or how in depth you should train them, right? What decides that is the actual outcome. Did the mirror get cleaned properly? That is the outcome that we are trying to do. And if the inputs that we are inputting are not giving us that outcome, then we need to change the inputs to get a different outcome, right? And so that brings us back to us, because I would sit there and I could be like, oh, a bunch of idiots, blah, 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 like I was talking about before. But would that have created a change in my business? The answer is no, because I would have viewed them as the problem without looking internally to saying, okay, how can I change this to get a better outcome? And that is the question that we need to ask ourselves. Because in every situation that you encounter in your business, what you have to assume is that you are the problem. And if we take it from that frame of mind, then we can take action on fixing it.
And those might literally be the $1 million questions.
Yep. And just look that through every frame of your business, in every area. If something is not going the way you want it to, okay, what can we do differently to get a different outcome? What am I contributing to it, or what might I need to do differently to fix this? And when I say that, I don't mean you going in to do it yourself, because that 100%. Is what a lot of people do, because they're like, well, if they can't do it, I'll just do it myself. It'll be faster that way. But if you only ever do that, then you're never going to not do that, right? Because if you always fill in the gaps, you always will fill in the gaps, because that's just the role that you've created for yourself. So you have to look at it, and what can I do as an owner and as a business person? What can I do differently there? How can I set the business up to succeed without me being the Band-Aid that goes and fixes it? And so that's what I wanted to clarify really quickly with everybody, is that is one way to do it, but it is not a sustainable way. It is not a way for you to succeed in the future.
Yep.
So guys, it has been a lot of fun today. And we've talked about a lot of stuff. And I hope that you're not really sad about your business and feeling like failures. But it is something that we all have to experience and say, you know what? I am the one that needs to change. And the things I do are what needs to change to create different outcomes. And if you start asking those questions and start actioning those things, your business will end up in a much different spot. And I hope that that is something that you work on and do. So guys, I hope you had a good time. Hope you learned lots. We'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.
This episode is brought to you by Ownership Training, where we help restaurant owners increase their profits while spending more time with their family. And if you want to know exactly what it would take to grow your profit margin to 15% and beyond while spending more time with your family, my team has a few spots open this week for a free 15-minute restaurant assessment call. Just click the book a call link in the description, and we'll show you the exact frameworks we're using to help our clients do this in as little as 6 to 8 weeks. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.